Who is capable, who is trained enough to sit with me in my pain? Someone who loves me.
I think about people that I've known in my life who it was obvious that caring for others is just part of who they are. And just finding those people who are uniquely gifted in this area as your starting point seems like an easy win.
But we see this massive conflict because 96% of the pastors, those same people, also say the best way to promote good mental and emotional health and flourishing inside the church is to have a community of believers who walk alongside one another.
And so today you said that you don't need a counseling license to love people or to love people well. That's a great statement. What does that look like in practice? Hello there, good listener. I am your host, Nick Stumbo, and you are listening to the Pure Desire Podcast, your biblically based and clinically informed approach to healing from betrayal and breaking free from all forms of compulsive sexual behavior. And whether today is your first day in recovery or your 10,000th, we hope that you will hear life-giving conversations that maybe you've never gotten to be a part of before. Today is episode 456, and here joining me as my co-host for this series is the one and only Heather Kolb. Heather, good to see you again.
Nice to be here again.
I am really enjoying this series that we are doing and grateful that you're the co-host because it's all about new books, and I know that you're a bit of a book nerd. Mm-hmm. And we got to interview some really great guests today. One that many of our listeners might know, Shaunti Feldhahn, is better known for the marriage books that she and her husband, Jeff, have done. Mm-hmm. But she has branched out into some different kinds of research, along with a psychologist named Dr. James Sells, or Jim as he goes by. And we got to talk to them today about their new book, When Hurting People Come to Church.
Yeah, this was really a great conversation. I really didn't know what to expect, but the practical approach to equipping the church to deal with all kinds of mental health or emotional health issues that we've seen increase over recent years was helpful, simple, and yet still kept me wondering, okay, how would you jump into this? What's the next step? I want to see what it's going to look like. And yet when they talk about it, it's just like, oh, you grab these people and you do this thing. And you know what I'm saying? It was simple. Yeah. And yet there was still a little bit of a, okay, I want more. I want to hear more. I want to see the blueprint.
Well, and a lot of their conclusions were research and data driven, which I know means a lot to you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really fun to hear the outcome of their research.
Well, and I want to be clear that this series is not about selling books. Like, we're not getting any kickback from any of these authors or publishers. We chose these books really because of the concepts. You know, last week we heard from Dr. Jay Stringer and understanding like what we do with desire and where does that come from. And this week it is that concept of how can we all be equipped to care for one another, to bear one another's burdens, as Galatians 6 says, but also know our limits. And know when to refer to someone else and how this can equip a church community to care for one another well. And I think we see that happening in Pure Desire groups. And so we hope that this is just an encouragement for what happens in groups and what could happen in more churches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely seemed quite compatible to what we're trying to do through the groups that we run.
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to enjoy the conversation a bit more about the authors. Shaunti Feldhahn is a Harvard graduate and was an analyst on Wall Street before unexpectedly becoming a social researcher, best-selling author, and popular speaker. Today, she applies her analytical skills to investigating eye-opening, life-changing truths about relationships, both at home and in the workplace. Her groundbreaking research-based books, such as For Women Only and For Men Only, have sold more than 3 million copies in 25 languages. Dr. James Sells is a licensed psychologist and a professor at Regent University. For 3 decades, he has prepared clinicians to do the work of therapy, sat with thousands of couples and families pursuing relational healing and restoration, and authored books and articles to address human need. As a scholar, researcher, and therapist, Dr. Jim strives to consider the great influences of culture and individual need as he attends to the grand theme of reconciliation and redemption. And I know you're going to appreciate hearing from both Shaunti and Jim, the authors of the book, When Hurting People Come to Church, in part 2 out of 5 in our series, New Books You Must Read. Jim Sells and Shaunti Feldhahn, welcome to the Pure Desire podcast.
It is a pleasure to be
absolutely
here.
Delighted.
Yeah, we have been looking forward to this conversation and talking more about your book, When Hurting People Come to Church. And so let's just dive in with that. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you guys to write this book? What was the motivation behind it?
That was 2 fun stories from Shaunti and I, who didn't know one another. So Shaunti, you start with the story and then I'll jump in too.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, okay. Backstory. I've been a social researcher for 20 whatever years now, 25 years almost. And one of the things that had become really obvious in talking to people and surveys and all the stuff that we've been doing over the years for our other projects that my husband Jeff and I have done, the books we've written, we'd noticed that there had been this pretty significant increase in kind of personal pain. Mental health issues, emotional health issues. I'm sure that's not a shock to anybody listening to this. But there had been a desire to say, what can we do about this? And recognizing that the church has an opportunity to step into this space in a way that perhaps a lot of pastors and churches just aren't sure how to, what to do and how to do. And so it ended up being, and I'll let Jim explain more of that, but Jim and I got connected and we ended up saying, what is the church already doing? And conducting a big survey and a big study to try to find out what is it that pastors are already doing, what's working well, so that we can help the church step into this space.
And from a different path, I've been a counseling and psychology professor my career and training Christian clinicians to do mental health care, noticing that everybody is full. All of my students, myself, it's like it is. There became too much work and not enough workers to attend to the task. So oddly, a number of years ago, I was driving in South Carolina on a country road not far from Clemson University. For those people that are participating in this from that region of the world, this is where it all started for me. I came across a church, small Baptist church on a country road, and it had a sign like all small Baptist churches have, but instead of saying Sunday school at 9:30, worship service at 11, prayer meeting Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, it said family counsel available. And I stopped and just looked at that sign. I took a picture of it. It's on my phone. And I've used it in a number of presentations where I thought that changed thought for me. Because this country church had figured out that the way that they could get people into their building was not by advertising what time our service is, but by saying, you got a teenager with a meth addiction? Come here. A husband with a pornography issue? We can take that. Like whatever it is, stop in here and we can help. And I don't think that those people in that church, I've never met them. I wrote and tried to reach out to them and find out who they were, but they were probably just regular folk, not clinicians, not psychiatrists, not trained experts, but just people who said, we want to help those in our county attend to the life crisis, and we think Jesus can help. So I wrote a book then, an academic book, because that's what professors do, a theory around how to train counselors for the next generation that includes the church. And that was called Beyond the Clinical Hour. But it was an academic book to professors to be used in the classroom. And then a pastor connected that we both know, a gentleman in Kansas connected Shaunti and I, like, you have to talk to one another. And that was a phone call in a parking lot on a Saturday morning. I was on the phone and Shaunti was at home and Jonathan Hoover was in his church, and we were all talking about this idea. From it came a foundation granted us the funds to do this as a 3-year project. We are now in year 2 of a 3-year project that was create a product that every person in every church, English and Spanish, could use. The book was part of that product as an anchor point.
Yeah.
And but the book is really meant to work with organizations around how to care for people and to help create products for anybody to be able to use in their ministry.
I really love that because historically in the church, the idea of mental health or emotional health or, that has not been a thing. In fact, it's more of, well, if you have a mental health issue or you're struggling in any way, then you're doing it wrong because you have Jesus and Jesus saves everybody. He solves everything. And so I love hearing that and leave it up to the Baptists, right? To have a sign that says, we're here to help. We offer family counseling. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate what you shared, that I think we do all see that personal pain is on the increase, people struggling. I heard a speaker say recently that in our modern society, we're asking the question, can we do this? Not should we do this? And if we can do it, then we go for it. And whether it's social media or smartphones or just the pace of life, that what we can do has far outpaced what we should do. And because of that, our response to caring for people and caring for one another is lagging behind because society is shifting so quickly. And I really feel like what you all are describing in this book is an approach to say, here's a way that we can care better for one another in a quickly shifting and evolving world.
Yeah. And that is in one sentence, Nick. Yeah, that what we want to be about. Well said. I should write that down and use it if I could.
So you describe a growing mental health crisis. Many readers know the struggle of trying to find help for a loved one, often not knowing where to begin, and trying to find counselors who are already full, which you had mentioned that earlier. So why is this such a widespread issue today?
Well, let me jump in on kind of the data points on that one. Yeah. It has been pretty shocking over the last 10 years, but especially in the last 5-6 years, the pandemic kind of accelerated what was already happening. That right now, according to, for example, some of the Bureau of Vital Statistics groups and National Institutes of Mental Health, that kind of stuff, there's about 60 million people today, 60 million adults. This doesn't even include like adolescents and kids. About 60 million adults who have significant clinically valid mental and emotional health concerns. Like this is anything from, the person who's got an addiction issue to significant depression, anxiety. This is diagnosed mental health issues. And only 30 million of those are getting help. There's 30 million people out there who can't afford to get to a counselor, have tried and can't get in anytime soon. And we just think that there's an opportunity here that maybe the church hasn't really grappled with because so many pastors and church leaders, and probably the rest of us, like instinctively over the years, we've thought for people who aren't Jim, Jim is a clinical psychologist, and he's trained many Christian clinical psychologists over the years and Christian clinicians. But people who aren't in that space, we think, but I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor, right? Like the average pastor is kind of alarmed at the idea of trying to step into this space. And what we're saying is, listen, a huge percentage of the people that are dealing with pain don't necessarily need that more high-end clinical care. Mm-hmm. There's a huge percentage of people who maybe they do. That could be something that they need as part of the package, but the vast majority of people need someone just to walk alongside. And if you're a clinician, one of the things Jim and many other clinicians have told me is that if you're doing your job as a clinician and someone comes to you with, for example, a pornography addiction, if you're doing your job, you're going to help them, you're going to build some skills, you're going to deal with some things, but you're also going to say you need to be part of a group. You need to have friends to walk alongside. And so the church has to step in and go, oh my gosh, what a great opportunity for people who know Jesus, not to somehow turn into mini clinicians, but just be friends and listeners and care for one another in the way that we're supposed to. That essentially is the core of what we're saying needs to be kind of a little bit more operationalized in the church without being afraid of that piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
I love how you described that, Shaunti, and walk exactly with what you're articulating. I was looking at some numbers yesterday, and we know the 18 to 25-year-old group, typically the diagnosable mental health need historically has been around 10%, 12% of the population, according to data from National Institute of Mental Health U.S. facts. So I was looking at their charts yesterday around it, and we know that right before the pandemic, from roughly 2010 to 2015, we saw an increase from 10%, 12% to about 20 to 25% of the young adult and middle-aged adult population. The senior adults, people that are 50 and above, they stayed the same, right around the same. They tracked level. Then it increased from 20 to 25% to 35% during COVID. And now we have the data takes about 2 years to be able to analyze. So we have 2024 data now, and it has dropped and flattened a little bit. So it hasn't dropped from 30. It's no longer increasing from 25 to 35. Imagine the angle going up. No, it's now leveled off, and maybe it's going to dip, but we don't know what that dip looks like. It may next year might spike back up and increase more, or we don't know at that point.
But it's still I was looking at that data too. It's still somewhere around 30%. It's almost a third of the population.
Yeah. It is not good news. It's just maybe it's not as continuing to be worsening news. We don't know. Another piece of data that just came across my desk or my cell phone in the data generation was a new study, a meta-analysis from Harvard and Baylor in the Flourishing Study, and they looked at churches and people who regularly attend church, and there is a significant decrease in mental health need and the capacity for life flourishing if you go to church. Now, it might be just because of the socialization that occurs when you're participating in church.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a part of it, without a doubt. And in addition to that, there's Jesus. Yeah. There's grace. There is human restoration. There is attending to our shame. There is a sense of, you know me and you still love me. There is all of those things that come with showing up at church, engaging in biblical text, praying with one another, accepting others as you too have been accepted. So that's what we know. The stuff that you do at Pure Desire really works. It works in ways beyond specific behavioral addictions. It works. It addresses a host of mental health and life development concerns that enhances life joy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think that's staggering, some of those numbers, to think about 30 million people that may be in need of care, but are suffering alone. And I think that's consistent with what we have found. We did some research with Barna last year, and one of the questions asked, does anyone know of your struggle? And half the people, 49%, said no one even knows I'm struggling. And another question was, is anyone helping you avoid pornography? And of those who self-acknowledge that they struggle, 82% said no one was helping them. And so by and large, I think whether we're talking pornography or other mental health fields, we end up stuck and alone and not sure where to go. And it also makes me think of that great quote by Gabor Mate, who says that trauma is not what happens to us. Trauma is what happens inside of us in the absence of an empathetic witness. That really what's traumatic are the things that we suffer alone. And to hear that 30 million people potentially are suffering alone, man, if that doesn't motivate us to do something, I'm not sure what will.
Yeah.
Well, and especially because to help, because there's probably some church leaders listening to this. There's probably some pastors listening to this who are still like, I don't know. They're like, I'm not an addiction expert, right?
Totally.
And recognizing the power of, just to put it at the most basic level, the power of friendship, the power of not being isolated, the power of not feeling like you're alone, that you've got a friend who cares. And here's really the issue that I kind of, as I was doing some of the research and talking to so many pastors, and we ended up doing this big survey, and it ended up being a giant study of more than 2,000 pastors and church leaders, to recognize that we as believers, we churchgoers walking alongside one another, we have an incredible opportunity that a clinician does not. Because right now what we found, just so you guys know, is that in this big survey, and we did all streams of the church, Protestant, Catholic, all different ethnicities, large, small, whatever, 88% of the pastors said, I feel like my job, when someone comes to me with one of these issues, my job is to refer them out. Like, I can listen, I can talk to them once or twice, but like, that's the primary role of the church. That's what 88% of the pastors either totally agreed, or somewhat agreed with that. And that, like we said, that's awesome, right? Jim has been training Christian clinicians for 30 plus years, right? We're not suggesting that that's not a good idea. Of course it is. However, that clinician can't come over to their house for dinner on Thursday night.
That's right.
Right? They can't meet up with them when someone is struggling and just needs someone to talk to. They're a paid helper. They're a paid professional who can help build skills. But one of the things that churches we need to grapple with is that the most healing happens in context of, this person knows my shame, this person knows everything I'm struggling with, and they love me and care about me anyway.
Often, the first time I said this, I think Shaunti was surprised, and so I'll say it again. I think she knows what I'm going to say.
You really need to say it every time we do one of these interviews, Jim, because it's pretty powerful. If I have
my choice of recommending to someone to see a really good psychologist or have a really good friend, I'm going to do the friend every time.
Wow.
And I think I am a really good psychologist, but the power of a friend extended over a lifetime is far more effective than 10 sessions with me. And I think I do a lot of good things and can help, and I'm glad to take this out, and please come and see me. But oh my goodness, the power of a friend is far more significant on all of our development than a clinician.
Well, that I think really speaks to the power we've seen in Pure Desire groups, when someone feels like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing for the others. I'm just showing up. I'm doing my work. I'm there for them. But to be present with others as they walk through their journey, means more than we know. So you mentioned this a little bit. Most of our listeners, I think, are faithful churchgoers, and you really believe that the church is vital to the mental health crisis and helping with that. So talk a little bit more about what do you see that churches are currently doing? You mentioned the stat 88% say refer to a counselor. How are we handling the mental health crisis as churches? And is there a better way? Let's start to get into that.
Jim, you okay if I jump in on that one?
You have it. Yeah. I'll jump in with you afterwards.
Okay. So here is what we have seen in the church in part of this research. So I mentioned that 88% of the pastors and church leaders think I'm supposed to refer, like that's my job, right? But we see this massive conflict because 96% of the pastors, those same people, also say the best way to promote good mental and emotional health and flourishing inside the church is to have a community of believers who walk alongside one another and care for one another. So the pastors are dealing with this recognition that that is so crucial. And, Jim jokes that if 96% said it, it was actually 100, and some people just checked the wrong box, right? Like, probably
we're all on board.
Yeah, probably everybody would agree with that. But because of this tension and because of this believing two contradictory things, kind of, what we're proposing that would help is that we actually help churches set up something that's a little more systematic, something that's a little more organized. Like one of the things that we talk about is that right now, most of the needs in the church, whether it's big things, a woman who has postpartum depression and is in really significant need, and the person who lost a mom and they're just sad, all of those people get referred to the pastor, and by extension to the mental health professional that the pastor refers to. And what we're suggesting is maybe actually think of it more like by levels. And yes, the people who are at the top level need, they get referred to the top level professionals, the people who can actually step in with some pretty specific skills that are needed. But maybe the person who's been dealing on and off for years with a pornography issue, maybe they need that professional help, perhaps, but probably they need a group, right? They need others who can walk alongside them, like the Pure Desire groups. And maybe the person who isn't struggling with something as big as that, but just, again, they're sad, they lost their mom. Of course they're sad. They just need somebody to have coffee with, right? Like, and so instead of referring every one of those people to the pastor who's just overwhelmed and can't see and talk to everybody, and then to the professional who's also overwhelmed and has a 6-week waiting list or whatever, maybe we can carve out, okay, some of those folks, let's get them help from someone who's trained in helping at this issue, like the Pure Desire. That the Pure Desire person may not be able to help the person whose marriage is falling apart. They may not be able to help the woman with postpartum depression, right? But they can help with this particular area of need. And then maybe there's a group just of listeners who aren't even trained in that, but they can help the person who's dealing with loss and just sadness, just anxiety, a little bit of anxiety and worry, just to come alongside. And that group of listeners is one of the things that we're suggesting that churches build. So both of those levels, having the peer groups like Pure Desire as a strategy and having lay listeners as an official strategy that a church can build.
Yeah. And we, to take it an even step further, some people who go through training, short, brief training that we're offering or other ministries are offering around that lay level, some people are doing this as their ministry. Wonderful. Other people or other churches are saying, no, we want everyone to be able to sit with another person in pain, whether this is your calling or not. This is like when I was an adolescent and college student, and Campus Crusade was so active within my community, and the Navigators and like all those college uh, missions organizations, and like every Christian should be able to walk through the four spiritual laws and present their faith.
Yeah.
That wasn't just for the evangelists; that was for everybody. And you carry one of these in your wallet, and you are equipped to attend should the situation arise. Take that same idea to the 21st century, and we say every person should know what to do when someone says, I hurt, I'm really discouraged, I'm deeply sad, without going into a panic and without needing having the impulse to call the cavalry of professional care. Rather, let's sit and talk. Let's pray. Not can I pray for you? Like, can I pray with you? Can I join you in this prayer for the pain that you carry for your family? I am with you in this, and maybe other people are too. Let's be in this together. That's like step one. Everybody be able to have that. Like everybody should know how to parallel park. Everybody should be able to sit with another person who says, I really hurt and I'm discouraged. And everybody should be able to say, when I hurt and I'm discouraged, I can ask others for that without it being like, oh my goodness, I just grew a third eyeball in my forehead. Like, no, I didn't. I'm just being a normal human. Help me.
It sounds so simple, and yet it's something that's really, really challenging for people, for all of us, but even for people in the church, because I think that one of my fears in those kind of situations in the past is that I'm going to say something wrong. I'm going to do something wrong. This person is in so much pain. And if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to make it worse. And so I can see where even when you're describing it, it's like, yeah, that makes total sense. And yet they don't give you a card for that. They don't give you a card to carry around to say, if you encounter this situation, here are your 4 steps. So.
And that's why I like what you guys put in the book. As you were talking, Shaunti, I was thinking about the triangle illustration that I heard you present, and it's in the book, of that thought of, there's a top layer of people that have very specific needs and need professional care. And then there's a larger layer of people that have a specific cause that could be addressed in a trained group. And then there's a much broader portion of us that we just need someone to sit with us in our pain. And I think to what you're saying, Heather, is if we're one of those just sitting with someone in their pain, but what they're revealing is like more than we know what to do with, rather than just saying like, well, I'm out, I can't help, to be like, hey, I can refer you up to like the next level of we've got a group ministry for that. We've got people trained in this area. Could I connect you to them? And then if that group is not sufficient, be able to say, hey, we've got professional helpers that in your situation, we can connect you to. And if everybody, I think, sees there's a system here, because that's a word you used,
Yes,
that could give us the confidence to, Heather, what you're saying, that we know like, hey, if anything starts to happen where I'm out of my depth, there's a system that I can refer someone to another level of care, even while I continue to sit with them as a helper and a friend in their pain.
Yeah. To relieve the weight that you carry, Heather, and that everybody else carries about saying the wrong thing. That's the first question, the first worry that any master's or doctoral student in my first semester skills class will say. What if I say the wrong thing? And I say to them, as you are speaking, you say, I think I heard you say this. Is that right? Or did I miss it? And that's being wrong is actually the best thing you can do, because it requires the person who carries the pain to say, no, it's not like this. It's more like this. It's like, I got that down. Thank you. I am not trying as a listener, as a caregiver, I am not trying to solve. I'm trying to be present. And it's pretty hard to mess things up just by being present. Now, when it comes to recommendations and here's what you should, emphasis on the big should, at that point, you really can benefit from the training of advanced training. But at the bottom of the triangle, we're advocating a presence of people. And that's not with, I've got the solution for you.
Mm.
Just the presence is the initial power movement that allows change to happen. And this is not just in the church. This is something that we've known in community and social psychology for the past 75 years. That a good listener is the largest portion of change. I just was listened to. Uh, and having clinical skills and advanced understanding of the nuances of various pathologies, that's all beneficial in that context. But most of the time, it's like I felt understood.
Mm-hmm.
That was helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really beautiful. So, what would need to change in the church to become more than just a referral source for those in pain?
I like how, Nick, you started us off with the idea that, like, this is a cultural change, not I have a tool. So tools, products help change a culture, but the product is not it. It's the mentality that we all carry, starting from the pastor broadcast to the congregation, and that's top down and bottom up. People who are saying, um, "I want I want to be present with other people in pain. I know what it's like, and I have been affected by a great hurt, a personal disaster. I've like you all have spent more time with people who are putting their lives back together and now want to be able to attend, to be present with others, to have the same desire that they had when they were in their broken spot. Like so you are actively part of a cultural change, and it just takes you are working both on a top down with churches coming down and bottom up with people going into churches to alter the way we understand human pain and what our relationship with others is.
And if I could just jump in, because I'm guessing that there are some pastors, church leaders, involved volunteers listening to this who are like, okay, I get this, but what do we do? Like step by step, like what's the practical stuff that we can do to help engage this? And so if you don't mind, do you mind if I just share some of the stuff that we've built
Yeah.
in to help the church? Is that okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Because here is what Jim referred to this early on. There was a major donor that basically stepped forward and said the church needs to be able to be the hero in this. We have Jesus, we have the Holy Spirit, we have an opportunity here where people who just need to be listened to and have somebody walk alongside them. Let's do that in the church, right? Let's not do that just in community groups and in universities and in counseling offices. Let's do that in the body of Christ. And so they funded, as Jim mentioned, this 3-year major grant to create what we call the Church Cares. And thechurchcares.com, make sure you put the because there's a different group that has the other website. So thechurchcares.com is the group that we've been building. And basically we exist. If you are trying to help people come alongside one another, we exist to come alongside you and to come alongside the church to help you step into this space in the most like simple, basic ways, and to take the burden off the pastor. Because if the pastor thinks this is on me, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Right? Like every pastor I know is the busiest person that I know. And so the idea is, if you're listening to this as a lay volunteer, if you're listening to this as a counselor, if you're listening to this as a pure desire facilitator, and you catch this vision, what we would suggest is go to thechurchcares.com and sign up to get the kit because basically what we've done is over these last 2 or 3 years where we've been talking to all these different churches, when we heard churches that were already doing this, which there are thousands of churches out there that have been experimenting with this and have already kind of gone different directions down this road. Every church has its own DNA, so everybody's going to do it slightly differently. But what we did was we said, okay, I've heard 27 times that churches need this, whatever the this is. And so we put that in the Church Cares kit. And so if you, for example, say, we need to make sure that we understand when to refer and when to this can walk alongside. Great. We have a little piece, a little article. Here's that information. If you say, okay, what we really need is something that's kind of organized when someone calls the church and says, I need to talk to the pastor, and the receptionist now knows, well, great, we'll try to get you into the pastor, but in the meantime, I'm going to have our care coordinator call you. The person who can say, is this a top level need? Is this somebody you just need a group? Like that person. Well, that person needs to have some sort of a form to know what questions to ask. Great. Yeah. Here's a form that a bunch of other churches have used. Here's legal documents. Here's what you put in your bylaws. So you don't have to worry about, what happens if someone questions if this is, acceptable. All of those things are just basic stuff that we've put in this one kit. And you, as a volunteer, as a Pure Desire group leader, whatever it is, take a look at it, go to your pastor and say, I think we can do this, because it is pretty basic. And start with some listening training. So the people who go through Pure Desire groups, some percentage of them, for example, are really going to be getting healed and whole and want to help others. Well, guess what? Maybe they want to go through the it's just very short listening training so that they can be a little more equipped to sit with someone's pain without feeling like, Heather, what you were saying, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say, right? That simple starting point, we believe, is going to help every church step into this space.
Yeah, I love that you guys have thought very practically, because I think philosophically you nailed it. Most of us agree, yeah, this is vital. The pastor can't do everything. We all know that. We know the power of community and being with people, but actually implementing it as a system or as a strategy, many churches are just set up to be the pastor leads us and we do what the pastor says. And so it kind of plays into a model where the pastor does everything, versus really creating systemically a system that says, no, the pastor does have a role, but so does the body, and how we care for one another. And so do these specialized groups or care offerings. And if not at our church, what I've seen is so beautiful with a lot of the Pure Desire groups is there's not nearly enough of them to go around. And when someone is in need, whether it's at their church or another one, it's not about what church you attend. It's about where can I get help? And we find that that's not about, oh, now they go to that church, but that they become a healthier member coming back to your church saying, hey, we could do this here. And if your system allows for that, then those groups can flourish, versus the pastor feeling like, oh, here's one more thing I've got to run. Here's one more thing I've got to do, because that's not it at all. And so I think having those tools available, even I love what you said, all the way down to the bylaws, let's make sure it's all clear. So no one's like, is this okay? Because I thought the pastor did that. It's like, yes, the pastor does his or her role, and so does the body of Christ in caring for one another.
Just by the way, because I know that there are some people listening to this who are like, okay, can we talk about the legal stuff for a second? Like, what if we get sued? Like that, that's a question. And here's the encouraging thing for you all to know, is that if you put in your bylaws, we view this care for one another as discipleship. This is religious discipleship. You are now protected because you are saying we're not doing therapy, right? Yeah. This isn't licensed counseling.
Trained counselors.
And now some churches do have licensed counselors. That's awesome. My church does, right? But for most, just putting this is religious discipleship, this is caring for one another from a faith perspective, you now are protected, because the government, for example, can't regulate what religious discipleship covers and doesn't. And you've just said that's what this is. And so just to be reassured, we have had many legal experts look at this, and this is one of those things that thankfully it has become a bigger issue in some people's minds than it actually is.
Yeah.
With some that you all just described, Shaunti, especially around conversations we're having like publicly right now to pastors. If you're a pastor and you're hearing our voices and you take this on as the thing that you would like to initiate within your church, it will probably fail. We have frequently found that the pastors who have to initiate this and carry the burden, it dies quickly because there's too many other things to do. If you, on the other hand, look across your congregation and say, are there 2 or 3 people with whom this is their passion, that I can turn this over to these passionate caregivers? Is there a couple that have been hit by the pain of pornography that I can encourage them to take this as not a focused pornography ministry, but as a ministry to every other need in the church? And I give it to them, and they go recruit the other folks who join them in this bigger vision. Now you have a high probability of success.
Yeah.
Now you are blessing what they're doing, and you are not pulling the wagon up the hill. So that is a hard thing for many pastors to be able to conceptualize and let go of and allow their church to take it. They can empower others to do this thing. If they can, your probability of success just increased exponentially.
And suddenly the burden starts, you're going to start seeing it lift from your shoulders, because right now you're carrying everything, right, as a pastor. And one of the things that we have seen over and over and over in these conversations over these last 3 years is that the churches that had done something like this, right, everybody does it differently, but that had enlisted a layer of lay people in the peer group side, in the lay listener side, that about 6 months later, they were like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? Right? Because suddenly other people are carrying, again, that layer of the more basic walk alongside one another stuff that before you were figuring out, how do I work this person into my schedule? Right. And this is not taking away the fact that many of you are shepherds and that you want to still have those conversations. Absolutely. It's just right now there's too many of them, usually for most pastors that we've talked to.
Yeah. Well, I think every pastor and leader has probably quoted the verse that it's, that it is our job to build up and equip the body. And yet there's not always practical ways that we've been given to do that. And I think that's what we're emphasizing today and what your book emphasizes. And so today you've said that you don't need a counseling license to love people or to love people well. That's a great statement. What does that look like in practice when people embrace that I don't have to have a counseling license to love well?
Think about the object of who I love. If the object of who I love has a clinical disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, or major depressive disorder, all those things really require licensed treatment, licensed protocols to do those things. But I don't have to have a license to sit with someone who's discouraged, who knows fear, who carries worry about the well-being of their children, who is gone through a divorce and find themselves alone. Those are not licensable treatment protocols. Those are just human to human caring for people in pain. And I'm one of them. And all of us right now sitting here, we are talking about who is capable, who is trained enough to sit with me in my pain. Someone who loves me. And that is more powerful that is the most powerful element that we have in the set of human behaviors. Now, again, sometimes the complexity of my pain produces distortions in life where I am limited in my functionality. Now come and see me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need to see the one who carries pain. I'm a behavioral expert. It's interfering with the functionality of your life. Yes, go see a clinician. But everybody on my cul-de-sac, as I look out my window, every person here carries pain every day.
Mm-hmm.
And every person on my cul-de-sac needs someone like the listener who is attending to this to be their friend. And the church can be the organizing fulcrum around that intervention because of the gospel.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that you even mentioned this earlier when you were talking about this doesn't have to fall on the pastor. If it does, if a pastor tries to do this, they won't be successful. And you mentioned you find the people that really you recognize this is their gifting. Because even as you're talking, I think about people that I've known in my life who it was obvious that caring for others is just part of who they are. And just finding those people who are uniquely gifted in this area as your starting point seems like an easy win to all of this.
Yeah.
And it's an easy win. And it's also, just to reassure the pastor or the lay leader who's listening to this, it's also easier to get started than you think. Because again, when we were talking to the churches for the last couple of years, we weren't just talking to like a 2,000 member church that had a big budget for whatever, right? Like we're talking, like one of my most interesting interviews was with the pastor of a 55 member church, who just had a fantastic way of like thinking through how do we do this with limited resources and what can we do using the community resources, that kind of stuff. We ended up putting 5 of those case studies in the book of like, what can a small church do? Here's what different churches have done in completely different ways to really make this work. And one of the things, by the way, that we heard very commonly was, how Jim said, find that couple or find that person that you think, or 2 or 3 people that could come together and really move this forward in some way. One of the things that we heard that worked pretty well in many church contexts was for that person then to stand up on Sunday morning, maybe with the pastor standing beside them, so it was endorsed by the pastor, and say, you know what, here's this initiative we want to start. We know everybody's concerned about mental and emotional health today. In 2 weeks, on Thursday night, we're going to have a working group meeting. If anyone wants to be a part of this, if you want to help us think through how we put this together in our church, if you might want to be a part of it in some way, just come to the working group meeting. Come so that we can know who might be interested. And that way, whoever it is that's been tapped as the coordinator, they know, okay, you know what? I never would have thought to even ask this person, but they went through something really significant as a teenager. And even though they're young, they're 22 years old, they're just out of college, they've got some energy around this that I think they could be really good. And I never would have thought to ask them, but they showed up at the working group meeting. Mm-hmm. And so that starting point of, can we just get something underway and see what happens, has been really, really important for a lot of churches.
Yeah. Let me offer one concrete thing we haven't mentioned. We've said it's easy to start. Here is what we mean by easy. Our initial training, our listener training, is 6 hours. It's a weekend. It's a 1-day Saturday, or it's a 3 Wednesday night training that's all we're saying you need to start. Now you continue to get better, but like all we need is 3 things. We need to know how to listen, we need to know how to pray, and we need to know how to suggest what you can do right now. Those 3 things. And that doesn't make you a clinical expert. It makes you possess a tool that now you can comfortably know what to do when you're sitting with someone. Uh, and with that comes all the other team that is built around you to support, to make sure that this is an appropriate referral and who to go to next. But let's start with just 3 skills, and you can get those in 6 hours. So, in other words, you're not signing up for a 2 year training program. Like anybody can do this at the base level, at the bottom of the triangle. Yes, if you have a heartbeat, you should be able to sit with someone in pain.
Well, I love again that you're making it so practical, and what you said, Heather, that we're really equipping
Yeah.
everyone to use their gifts, to use their skills and experiences. And I think that's where every pastor can acknowledge they're limited. You know, if I as a pastor have not walked through divorce, I'm probably not real equipped to lead the divorce care class. You know, or if I've not had significant loved ones pass away, I'm probably not the right one to lead a grief class. If I've not had those experiences, it's probably not my area of passion. But other people in the congregation, that is their passion. And we've said often, you know, that no one is more equipped to help someone walking through addiction than the person that has walked through addiction themselves. You know, no one is better equipped to help someone to walk through trauma and betrayal than someone who has had to walk through betrayal themselves. And I think when we look at our church body, we see that, oh, there are many who have had these experiences, and maybe they're not perfect, but they're more equipped than I am because this has been their experience. And so they can be with someone in that pain because they know what that pain feels like. And when we can release that kind of care ministry, release that sort of lay leadership, it, as you said, Shaunti, it really does take the burden off the pastor to go, oh, I don't have to be all things to all people. And now, when I was a lead pastor, I did help lead our Pure Desire groups, but that's because it had been my story. And with the support of the elders, I'd had the opportunity to tell my story of addiction recovery. And so I was passionate about that. But there were other things like, that's not my area, that I don't have time for that, but I'm so grateful that other people do, and other people can be equipped to do that. And like you said, Jim, in 6 hours, they could begin to function in some of these ways. So this has been an amazing conversation. I'm excited about the book. Tell us a little bit more about where our listeners can go. You mentioned the website, but just talk a little bit more about where people can find the book, where they can learn more about the church cares, or how they could take their next steps to bring this to their congregation.
Sure. The book is available. It's published by Tyndale House, available through the Tyndale House site or any Amazon, any Barnes and Noble, any book distributor. You can just Google Shaunti Feldhahn or my name or the title, When Hurting People Come to Church. We'll get you there. You also can access it through our website. Shaunti gave you the website address, thechurchcares.com, all one word with the and that is, with that, you can have access just by giving us your email, so we can send you newsletters and updates. You have access to all the information. You don't have to sign up. Everything has been provided through this foundation, and we are part of our mandate was make this available to everyone without charge. So it's yours. So it's yours to download it. We can help train you if you're a leader and want to do with a training with us first, and then you train your churches. We offer training in English and Spanish. We have some experts who are leading teams on Saturdays. There's a Spanish one in late February, and in March there's an English one on a Saturday. Like, you can sign up for that. You can sign up for office hours with experts. I have office hours listed. You can sign up with me, and I can talk with you about how to do it in your church.
Wow.
We try and make it as accessible as possible. This is the gift that came to us from a family that wishes to bless the church. So we then are extending that blessing to you, and sign up. And with that, you have everything available. Adjust it to taste. This is a recipe that we've created, but any good chef knows you don't follow the recipe. You bend the recipe based on the people you're trying to serve for Thanksgiving dinner. Some like it hot, some not so spicy. So you have to be that chef in articulating creating this menu for the people you're going to serve. You have the freedom to adjust it. You don't have to do it like we tell you to do it. We offer it to how it can be done. Now fix it to fit your world.
Can I also jump in to give a church a vision? If you have been, because I am guessing that there are some churches out there, some leaders, volunteers, pastors, who have wanted and maybe tried to get a Pure Desire group going, but the church leadership was kind of wigged out a little bit. They didn't know how to handle this. This could give you an on-ramp, because this is any pain. This isn't just sexual brokenness, right? This is loss, this is trauma, this is grief. Like I said, this could be anxiety, this could be depression, this could be whatever. And one of the things that you might consider is having some sort of an event, something that helps launch the church officially into thinking about these matters, where the pastor can stand up on stage and say, hey, in 2 months, we're going to have a church-wide, event on mental and emotional health, or whatever it is that you want to call it. And we're going to use this as a launch for small groups. We're going to use this as a launch for several ministries. We're going to use this as a launch for a working group to think through how, we want to do this. And that might help to launch groups like Pure Desire that a church might have been a little bit leery about before, because it's not just that topic under discussion. It's several. You could do a survey at the event. What are the needs? And people are anonymous and they're like, here's what I need. Oh, wow. I didn't know that 28% of the men who attended said, I struggle with this topic. Maybe we need a Pure Desire group or whatever. Try something like that in order to help you get started. And listen, if you want me or Jim to come speak at that event, we'd be glad to. That's the kind of stuff that you can enlist the local counselor to speak at an event like that, and they would love to do it, right? Like, there are amazing opportunities here if you kind of think through, how can we do an official launch of this thing and get the church engaged?
Well, I love the way you guys have cast a vision for that. You've made it practical. The book is When Hurting People Come to Church, and we'd highly recommend you grab a copy of that. And what we're talking about is equipping the body. It's not about needing more professional counselors. They're great and they have a role to play, but it's really about equipping more people to be with one another in their pain, creating group opportunities. And whether Pure Desire or others, there are many of us that have created those opportunities, but a church has to have a paradigm for it. And I think you guys have created what that could look like and made it practical. And so thank you, Dr. Jim. Thank you, Dr. Shaunti. We found out you're a doctor as well. Congratulations on that. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, both in the book, but also on the podcast today. We've really been blessed by this conversation.
We have too.
Yes, you're welcome. And we are grateful for the words and the things that you do. Like, Heather, Nick, well done. There are thousands who have been touched by your care for others.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to you, our listeners. We appreciate you tuning in. And if you're a fan of this content, please write us a review, subscribe, like it, share it. All of those are ways that more people can find this life-giving content and might make a difference in their world today. And if you want more information on Pure Desire's groups, resources, or counseling, you can visit us at puredesire.org. Journey on, my friends. You are not alone.